One of the first steps in learning how to graph square root functions or equations that have square root symbols in it is you need to be able to find the domain and the range of one of these square root functions or one of these square root equations. At the beginning, we're just going to give you graphs, and we're going to give you a graph and let you look at the graph and determine what the domain and the range is of that graph. Later on, they're going to give you an equation and you need to figure out what the domain and the range is. So right now we're just going to look at graphs and determine what the domain and the range is. So right now what we're going to do is we're just going to look at some graphs and we're going to determine what the domain and what the range is on these graphs of square root functions. Square root function always has this type of shape. One of my former students said it looks like a curved ray, and that's what it kind of looks like, a curved ray. It has a starting point, and then it goes on forever in one direction. Is any x value that's possible on the graph? The domain is any x value that's possible on the graph. So looking at this graph right here, negative 10 on the x-axis is not a possibility. Neither is negative 6, neither is negative 2, but 0 is. 1 is a possibility, so is 2, 3, 4, and it just keeps going. So if you were going to write the domain for this picture right here, you would say it's everything greater than 0. And you would use inequality symbols. In fact, you would write x can be anything greater than or equal to 0. So you'd use one of those inequality symbols to describe this right here. Then they're going to ask you for the range on one of these type of functions. That's going to be the y. So we look at any possibility y can be. Can y be negative 10 looking at this graph of this square root function? No. Can it be negative 6? No. Negative 2? No. But it can be 0. And even though this graph only goes to this point right here, in the picture, it's going to continue rising and rising a little bit along until it can go on forever and ever. It can keep rising. So eventually it will get to 10 up here. It's just going to take a while. So it starts at 0 and anything bigger than 0. So your y or your range for this function is y greater than or equal to 0. What's the range of this function? Again, I'm looking at the y-axis when I'm talking about range. I'll look at possibilities. It could be, can't be, negative 10, negative 8. It looks like it starts at 0, and then it's going to continue on forever, anything bigger than 0. So y is going to be greater than or equal to 0. Notice these are other pictures of square root functions, but it always has this shape right here. It has a starting point and it keeps going forever in one direction. Now I need to find the domain of this one. So remember, the domain is the x's. So I'll look along the x-axis. Can it be negative 10? No. Can it be negative 8? No. Can it be negative 6? Yes. And anything bigger than negative 6. So when I write down what the domain for this one is, I say x is greater than or equal to negative 6. X is greater than or equal to negative 6. I'm going to ask what the domain is. Remember, the domain are any possible x's on this graph. Is 8 a possible answer? No. 2 a possible answer? No. Is negative 2 a possible answer? Yes. Negative 4, negative 6, negative 8, negative 10, so forth and so on. So for the domain on this one, it's going to be x is less than or equal to negative 2 because it's going in this direction. It's all the numbers less than negative 2 and equal to negative 2. So x is less than or equal to negative 2. What is the range of this function? Can y be 8? Can y be 4? No. Can y be 2? No. Can y be 0? No. but y can be -1. Can it be -2? Yes. And anything going in this direction. So I'm going to start with y is less than or equal to -1 because it's any value that's equal to -1 and less than -1. Y is less than or equal to -1. What is the domain of this function? The domain or possible x's. Is 4 a possibility? No. -2 a possibility? Is 0 a possibility? Yes. 0 is a possibility. I don't look on the y-axis, I look at the x-axis. And right here, 0 is a possibility, -1 is not, but 1 is. So it's going to be x is greater than or equal to 0. For this graph, we need to find what the domain of this function is. What are the possible x's? So look along the x-axis. It can't be 6, it can't be 4, it can't be 2, but it can be 1, and it looks like anything that's less than 1. So my domain for this is x is less than or equal to 1. Being able to tell what the domain and the range is for these square root functions is the first set of skills you need to be able to graph one of these.